And welcome back to 48 Now. I'm digital host AJ Wiest, and if you've ever wanted to try your hand at blacksmithing, well, this Thursday is the time to do it. The shop Huntsville at 5:30 this Thursday, they are offering a basic blacksmithing course, and today I am joined with Phil Kern as well as Dewey Mason. Thank you guys for coming in today.
Oh, I'm glad to do it. Thank you
for having us.
Yes, sir. So first, talk about what inspired this basic blacksmithing course.
Well, we at the shop Huntsville, we're a nonprofit makerspace, and one of the things we do to keep the lights on is offer classes, and we've been offering a welding 101 and a welding 102 for the metal working parts, and we decided to put in a blacksmithing course, a basic blacksmithing course, so that people would be interested in doing that and maybe going on to some more artistic things as well.
Yeah, that's super cool. And kind of talk about kind of the main difference between blacksmithing and welding.
I'll leave that to Dewey.
Okay, yes.
Well, the first thing is, the fact that I've known Phil for almost 3 years.
3
now.
years, yeah.
And John too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew they were real good guys, and so when they approached me and said, hey, would you be willing to teach this class? And I've done some teaching in some other maker spaces, which is where we met and different things. And then I've been teaching classes for years. Some of the major differences is just the amount of industrialization. If you look at what blacksmiths do, the art goes back at least 3,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have electricity. You don't have to have modern infrastructure. Really, it's a much simpler way to work metal.
Right.
A lot more labor intensive, but the creativity that you have available is a lot wider. I do a lot of metal sculpting and metal art and things using modern fabrication techniques as well. But with the blacksmithing, you learn that steel is basically like Play-Doh, just much more vigorous or much more viscous.
Uh-huh.
And you can shape it however you want. And so that's something that you can't really do so much with the modern fabrication equipment. Fabrication, you got a lot of straight lines and sharp corners, and you're down to the 10,000ths a lot of times. Whereas with blacksmithing, it's very fluid, it's very intuitive, and it's much more art and much less science. Not to say there's not a lot of science to it. There's a lot of things you have to know, but in the execution, it's much more of a free-flowing art form than it is, building to rigorous specs.
Right. Very cool. And you mentioned the science. What all can attendees expect to learn at this Thursday's event?
Well, first, you're not going to be a qualified journeyman blacksmith or anything after a couple of hours.
Oh,
but
dang it.
Well, here's the thing, and just like when I teach the welding classes, my biggest thing I want them to leave with is enough confidence to keep learning and enough knowledge of how to continue to do that without hurting themselves.
Right.
You'll be able to make some basic things. In a couple of hours, I can teach you enough techniques with blacksmithing that you can go and purchase some inexpensive equipment, either used or out of the cheap tool market. We've put several people through college at Harbor Freight.
Harbor Freight you.
Oh yeah, but what is it? Canadian Tool and Tire with the Grizzly brand, and several of those. That you can order a lot of stuff off of off the internet and Amazon, that sort of thing. And it doesn't have to be super expensive, and that's one of the things I want people to realize. And while it's an art form that you can spend the rest of your life trying to master and still have a lot left when you die, you can learn the basics in a few hours, and from there a little bit of practice and practical experience and application, and you'll start being able to make some things that you want to be able to make. So that's really what they're going to learn, is how to sit down and start a project, what tools and things they need as far as the equipment, how to use it without hurting themselves, and how to make a few basic things that they can learn on to continue moving forward.
Right, and take home.
Yeah.
That's right. I
Everybody always
understand.
leaves with a project.
Right. 100%. And speaking of making things, what are some awesome things you've created over the years?
I have done everything from tractor parts. We've done, flowers and trees and birds and sculptures and dragons and things like that. I make a lot of tools. I make armor, medieval armor.
That's cool.
We make medieval weapons.
Mm-hmm.
We've been involved with an organization called the Empire of Medieval Pursuits for a number of years, and then we've been involved with some other things before that. So we work with the Winds of Time Foundation to do a lot of their recreation stuff. I've done wagon parts. I've done things for sets for some cowboy type movies and things like that. Done some stuff for some pre-colonial reenactors.
Wow.
I've been doing this since 1983 as a hobby.
Uh-huh.
So in that period of time, I've done a great many things. We've done metal bound chests and hinges. Usually in the medieval world, the number one thing you sell though is tent stakes. For all that there's a great many interesting things. Much of what you build is just utilitarian things. Tripods to cook over a campfire, things like that. Things that you use, you know.
Right.
And so that makes a lot of the difference. We make what we call a gravity hook, which, as far as I know, is not actually medieval, but it looks really good in a medieval or Civil War or whatever era tent, pre-colonial, pre-industrial era, anything fits really well. And it literally just sticks on the pole and hangs out, and it's called a gravity hook because it only stays if there's something on it.
Uh-huh.
But you just stick it on there and hang it on there. It's just a bent rod that you put some twists and decorative cuts in. And it looks nice, but it's very utilitarian. And that's also, I think, a lot of the difference between blacksmithing and fabricating is you put a lot more artistry into just simple utilitarian items. You can buy a metal spoon from Walmart and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if I buy the materials and make that same spoon, I can put a lot more love and care and interest and character into that piece of metal. No one's going to treasure the $6 stainless steel machine pressed cooking spoon for 3, 4, 5 generations. The things that I make, they certainly will.
Right. And you can be like, I made that. It's a sense of pride as well.
Right. Yeah.
How would you describe your art style when it comes to blacksmithing?
Eclectic.
Okay.
I mean, just to be perfectly honest, the further back in history you go, the less specialized various types of smithing became. By the time you get back to, for instance, the days of William the Conqueror, to use a timeline most people in European history are familiar with, the smith made basically everything made of iron and steel. And at that time, iron and steel was not nearly as ubiquitous or high quality as it is today. It was something that the smith often made the iron and steel as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so they literally did the whole thing from ore to product, and they made everything from tools and weapons to nails to bucket hooks to anything that needed to be made of iron that was worth the expenditure. They were the ones that made it, and then later period they began to specialize. In the modern era, you have opportunities to where you can look at all of those from a historical context, and the unfortunate downside is much of what happened is lost because you're looking at a society where most people were illiterate, where records were more of a rarity, but a lot of it has been passed down, and there are still people who have traditions of smithing that you can follow back for many hundreds of years. And a lot of that, like I said, is 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years old.
Wow.
So that's why I say eclectic, because I've got an interest in most every aspect of smithing. What we teach is pretty specialized. I make a couple of little hooks because it's a good way to learn a few techniques that you can use and something you can take home and, hang some potted plants or, skillet on and it looks neat and you go, hey, I made that. And
That's
most
right.
people will never do anything else. But we've had several that have.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
It opens the door.
Mhm.
Right.
That's right. And Phil, when did you get involved in blacksmithing?
When I suggested the course, it just became part of the series of metalworking classes that we teach. So there'll probably be a second one as well. And then possibly smithing / welding. There may be some artistic classes with metal as well.
We've been
Cool.
collaborating
Yeah.
on something to kind of combine the modern fabrication with the blacksmithing into an artistic expression through metal type of a course, which would probably take more than one one session to really be able to get people to that level, and we do kind of look at, can we build on these things?
Right.
If you've taken this and this, can we go to the next thing? Because it is a learning process. But for people who are interested, it's probably more open today than it's ever been, and the shop is an excellent resource here in town. And so as soon as Phil approached me and said, hey, would you want to do this? I was absolutely. I didn't even have to think about it.
And Dewey, what do you enjoy so much about blacksmithing, whether it's the relaxation that you get doing it, or once you have the finished product, kind of showing it off? What's your favorite part?
Really, it's the ability to look at a piece of steel that is nigh unto indestructible, and to know that didn't look like that when I started. I took just a chunk of metal and I turned it into whatever useful or beautiful item that it now is. To be able to take a piece of sheet metal, for instance, put it in the fire, get it hot, work on it for a few hours, and then put it on another person's head as a helm,
right,
when it was just a sheet of metal. To take a piece of iron rod and put a few hours in a few 100,000 BTUs and 10,000 blows of a hammer, and have a gate that has, a flying duck and some cattails with some swirled clouds in a metal gate that goes on my aunt's porch. Things like that.
Absolutely. And for someone like me who's never done blacksmithing before, how would you describe the process?
You take a nigh unto indestructible material, you cram it in a fire, you get it really hot, and you beat the snot out of it till it looks like you want it to.
That is awesome.
That's really the basis of the whole thing. There's obviously a lot more nuance to it, but at the end of the day, I tell people I don't do a lot with computers, because there's nothing on a computer that I can either A, put in the fire, or B, hit with a hammer and have it work better.
Right.
Whereas with a piece of steel, that's really it. You just get it really hot and you hit it, and you just have to look at it and go, what's it going to do? And you have to have the mind of a child playing with Play-Doh, because that's really how it moves.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And yeah, I think that would be the perfect thing to let out some anger. You have some anger in you.
Yeah. A little bit of frustration to work out, that'll certainly do it. I've got a 6-pound hammer at the house that if you've got some frustration you want to get rid of, that dude'll do it.
That's right. Are there any other need-to-know details for this Thursday's event?
Basically, for any of the people who are going to be coming, they need to wear natural fibers, leather closed-toed shoes, because there are sparks and you don't want them just melting through polyester or what have you. So we supply all the other personal protective equipment.
Okay.
So, and if you've got long hair, please tie it back.
Right.
Yeah.
And just make sure if whatever's on your clothes, if you do things where you've got oil or stuff like that, you don't want to have anything like that on your clothes. My son, some years ago, he was still a teenager, my youngest son was, and we were working in the shop that we had out in Huntsville. Went home, went to work, everybody was hungry, so my wife went and got a bucket of chicken. We had chicken, and of course you're grungy and you're dirty, and you wash your hands before you eat, because otherwise it's like eating pavement. But in the process, we didn't have napkins in the shop. We're in the smithy, and acting like barbarians. And so he ended up wiping this chicken grease on his shirt. About 15 minutes later, I'm inside, and I hear my son screaming, "David on fire! David on fire!" And I go outside, and his shirt has holes burning in it because he set himself on fire having chicken grease where he wiped his hands on his shirt like some kind of a heathen. So,
oh my gosh. Was he okay?
He was okay.
Okay.
He was a bit traumatized, and his beard was a little funny shape. But other than that, he was good. But we certainly learned the lesson of be careful of what you have on your clothes, because again, you're being sprayed with fire. We also started at that point. That was really the beginning of his more consistent habit of wearing the apron I'd been suggesting to him for months at that point.
Right.
So if you're going to do this, then please. If you're going to have greasy food, make sure that you either change your shirt or you've got something over it, so that don't wipe your hands on your shirt. Use a napkin.
Right.
Blacksmiths may look a lot like barbarians, but don't act like one and put, because chicken grease on your shirt is not a good thing.
That is hilarious. That is so funny. Would you like to mention some of the other courses coming up?
Yes, we have and we rotate these on a monthly basis. So we have woodworking courses for bluebird houses, bat houses, pen turning classes. We have a whole series of sewing classes that are very popular. We also have, we will be having some 3D printing classes as well. And we also have screen printing classes. We have a whole setup upstairs for screen printing hoodies, t-shirts, what have you. And those are all available online at theshophsv.org.
Well, good to know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, the thing about the shop that really, I think anybody looking at it should know, there's more expertise in that one building between all the people that are in there than one person can ever learn.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, I say that not as someone who's a part of it, but just I go there myself, and just the amount of knowledge that he and John have in woodworking, for instance, it's something I'll never catch up to.
That's right. A little bit of everything.
Right, a little bit of everything, and it's a community where you can come and learn or supply your expertise. That's the whole idea behind having that makerspace. So yeah.
That's right. Well, good deal. Well, that's just about all the questions I have. If you'd like to further add something that maybe I didn't ask, feel free. But thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, it was a pleasure to have you. I know one of the things that I would like to just mention is we do. I'm from Albertville, so we have to drive up, and we also do classes down there, doing the blacksmithing. If someone's down that area and doesn't want to drive all the way to Huntsville, we do some of that. Just go online for firegiantsforge.com, and you can find our website as well.
Okay. Well, good deal.
Well, thanks, AJ.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming in. And if you're watching at home right now, come on out this Thursday to the shop, Huntsville. Try your hand at blacksmithing. You get to take home what you make, and you get to spend some time with my good friend here, Dewey. But you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a great time. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.